Hey Roy, how are you?
Hey Nick, I'm good, thank you. Happy New Year to you.
Excellent, and a happy new year to you as well. Did you have a good holiday season?
I did. I did. I actually took some time to take a break from all that crazy traveling last year, and so I think I'm mostly recovered. We'll see, but this year is going to start again soon, right? So,
Yeah, and it always
yeah,
does.
yeah.
I love the holiday season. It's like that week, between like the 24th and New Year's. It is like
Hmm.
I think the best week of the year. Like everyone's like on vacation. You're not getting pinged
Yeah.
with emails. No one's asking you
Hmm.
for anything. And
Hmm.
it's like oh my god, everyone's on vacation. It's like
Yeah. No,
Obviously,
it's
unfortunately, the
good.
FedEx people and UPS folks and retailers, not so much.
I feel bad for them, right? Yeah, you see them driving around, and I'm sure, yeah, they wish they were home with their families, but they're driving around and delivering on weekends too. So I feel bad for them, but I hear you. Yeah, that's a good time when email is not pinging, you don't get stuff coming in that you have to respond to right away. That it's a good feeling. It only lasts a
Yeah,
while, then
yeah,
it's back.
love it.
Yeah.
So, one, thanks for coming on to the podcast. I'm actually been looking forward to talking with you all day. Um, so I thought we'd start with what we're trying to do. Well, one thing that we're doing with the podcast is we're really fortunate, that we get to talk to a lot of different people. And
Hmm.
some of them, have high profiles like yourself. And they don't really get to know them. It's really just, they see your name and they, read about something that you wrote and so forth. So, this is not a podcast for Onug, but like a lot of the Onug people kind of plug in. So it's really,
Hmm.
in building community, it's always kind of great to know who's part of the community. So I wanted to first start off with just your own career path, like what your journey was like, and how you started and and how you ended up, doing what you do now.
Yeah, no, I never thought I was going to be an industry analyst many, many years ago. So I started long, long time ago in networking. No, no surprise.
Hmm.
Started as originally doing firmware engineering at Cisco on ATM, asynchronous transfer mode. So that was a long, long time ago. Writing some firmware, and then from there moved on from engineering into technical marketing, into sales engineering, into product management across different companies. So started with networking, went into network attached storage, um, and then from there got into the dot com, just like some other people in the and that didn't go so well as we all recall. Very few people made it out of the dot com era. Um, it went back into networking, but this time on the testing side. So um, to help launch a company. So I was on the founding team of a company that made a layer 4 to 7 network testing solution, and
Yeah.
then took it to market. Right as the dot com crash, we were going after it's actually eBay was a customer actually, and we were going after the rest of the
Oh,
dot coms, and that market went away. So we said, you know what, we'll go to the carriers. And this was back in, we launched the product in the 2000 timeframe, right? And then we'll go to the
hmm,
carriers, no problem, right? When the carriers and MCI and some
hmm.
of the other carriers were customers. Well, the telco crash came right after the dot com crash. And we're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
right? So we took another right turn, and I guess now facing back in the opposite direction. But we took a third right turn and went after the network equipment providers who were hurting, but because they were all developing layer 4 to 7 products, load balancers and firewalls and the like, they bought our
Yeah.
stuff. And so we grew that revenue stream. So that product was pretty proud of. We did it 3 million the first year, 12 million the second year, 24 in the third year. And then we got bought by
Hmm.
Spirent Communications and
Yeah.
then became part of Spirent. And it grew to 40 million in the year that we got
Yeah.
bought into Spirent. So it was a good outcome in the very bad time. And that's how I ended up at Spirent Communications for a little bit in the test
Yeah.
and measurement industry. And then from there, went back and did it again, started another company, this time in network identity. So it was an access control product back in
Yeah.
'04. Raised a bunch of money, raised about 26 million. And it was zero trust before zero trust, this is what people will call it. It was network access control,
Yeah.
attribute based access control for networking in the '04 to '08 timeframe. In the '08, was out raising my C round. Unfortunately, there was Lehman Brothers collapse, and
Yeah.
we couldn't. We just couldn't. We were not profitable. 130
Yeah.
customers, not profitable. We had to sell the
Yeah.
assets. The asset was
Hmm.
bought by Nortel, which then went
Yeah.
bankrupt. It was
Yeah.
it was called Identity Engines. The company was not it was Nortel ID Engines for a little bit on the market. Nortel went
Yeah.
bankrupt, got sold to Avaya. It became Avaya
Yeah.
Identity Engines. So the product
Oh.
kept getting sold, right? So the product was bringing in tens of millions of revenue, right, on an ongoing basis under different brands. First Nortel, then Avaya, then it was called
Yeah.
Extreme Identity Engines. So the product
Oh
line
my.
stayed
Yeah.
consistent throughout. So it was a good product. Unfortunately, I didn't make any money out of that one. So Zero Trust prematurely in the market prematurely. And then from there, I ended up doing management consulting, started media site with a former partner called SDX Central in
Yeah.
the software defined arena. Grew
Yeah.
that and the research team inside there. And in 2018, we spun out independently. So the last 5 years, we've been an independent research firm. And that's how I ended up here, where I am right now. AvidThink.
Wow, what a journey! That is actually a really great story. I love it. And what's interesting? There's a lot of things interesting about it, but like most of us that have been in the industry for a while, that have kind of had our own career journey through kind of the networking industry, have everybody's lived through kind of the 2001, 2001 dot-com crash, the
Yep.
telecom crash,
Right. Yep.
the Great Recession, of 2000,
Mm-hmm.
and eight. And those were, you really had to like be a good manager, to
Yep.
kind of like manage through that period. Unless like you were like, this, really large corporation, like,
Mm-hmm.
for example, like Cisco did a really good job in that time frame because it hurt. Cisco clearly decelerated fast as everybody else did, but at least they had a lot of cushion, there. And
They
so
did.
the longer that the downturn lasted, actually was kind of better for them in a way because like their competitors couldn't survive. And
That's
so
right.
as we
That's right.
knew it would turn, like the big got bigger, and the weak got
Yeah.
weaker, during that time frame.
Yeah, I mean it's the
So
same with. I mean, if you look at the last couple of years, right, the rich got richer, right? I think it was what the wealthiest doubled their wealth or 10 times their wealth in whatever period it was. And yeah, if you have a cash pile and you're sitting on it and you're holding cash, then bad times will beat out everyone else, right? And you're left standing, so you can reap the
yeah,
benefits. But yeah, no, that's
I
a good
know.
point, Nick. Very good point.
It's crazy too because like there are every once in a while like economic crashes kind of frighten me, because you're in this unknown area and also there's no floor, anymore, and you're kind of like you're in suspended, animation, and you're just like you're thinking about your family and you're thinking about the people who rely upon you and everything.
Mhm.
And so my mind will every once in a while it will flash back to the depression, era, and like long lines and shortages of bread and stuff like that. But really when you look back at that, it was like, if you were kind of like upper middle class, like you were kind of okay, even though there was
Mhm.
25% unemployment, that 75% that was employed were, it wasn't a good time whatsoever, but it was, but you survived, it. And so like my parents grew up in that era, and so
Mhm.
they were scarred from it, and that was kind of a multi-generational kind of scarring. But anyway, the only reason I bring that up is that we went through our trials and tribulations, a couple of them in our career, but it was
Mhm.
nothing like they went through like in the late 20s and early time frame, and early
Agreed.
30 time frame. So
Agreed. Agreed.
we're lucky.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. No, we are, I mean, we are lucky, right? In the sense that, I mean, I think it's part of sort of, if you're in the United States or any of the developed nations, then you are definitely very fortunate, right? And that's, and it is luck, right? It's luck where you're born. That is a matter of sort of luck in a sense, and where you're born sort of dictates, in some sense, at least it sort of puts you in the right ballpark already, right? I mean, imagine you were born in some part of the developing, economies in the world where you can
Yeah.
try really hard, you can work really hard, but the opportunity isn't there, right? In fact, you don't have a roof, you
Yeah.
don't have food, you don't have water. It's a lot harder, but we are fortunate, right? In most of the developed nations, generally speaking, if you work hard and your luck's not too horrible, you can make it, most of the time, right? Most of the time, maybe not
Yeah.
all the time, but most of the time. Agreed. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, so great. So that was actually, so we both have history, and we can look
Yep.
back and allows us to kind of
Mm-hmm.
move forward, as well. But I think during that time frame, a lot of kind of my peers, we were just so busy kind of building businesses, and we were busy, taking care of families and so forth,
Mm-hmm.
that we kind of put health and wellness, on a back seat, and I
Mm-hmm.
think like now it's changed though. I think, as clearly I'm in my 60s now, like early 60s, early with a big E, capital E. Yeah. And
It's almost like you're in the 50s, Nick. Come on, just
I know.
it's
Well,
how
I
you
do say like
feel.
90.
Yeah.
That is very true. But I do say 90 is the new 50, so
Yeah. No.
anyway,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yes.
but there's a lot more focus on like on health and wellness. So like Roy, you've always been in great shape. So I thought, hey, let's talk a little bit about like how you approach, health and
Sure.
wellness. So what do you do?
Yeah, so I don't do much. So generally speaking, I take walks every day, which is
Mm,
helpful. I can't run easily. I'm not a runner, but I can do light jogging, and that seems to help, generally speaking. But yeah, I think just
mm,
getting out every day and walking around and just thinking through, and that's when I listen to podcasts like these, right? I actually listen to podcasts
mm,
and you're sort of walking around. I think
yeah.
that generally is helpful, and I think the other element that sort of keeps me going is, when you have a family, you have kids, it is helpful to take a break, right? I know folks who just work all the time and it's not healthy.
Mm,
In my case,
yeah.
I can't afford to do that because the kids always interrupt. Now, my kids are now all older. I have four. It's a
Mm,
lot, as everyone will say,
nice.
right? I mean, and so
It's not a lot. That's great.
yeah, yeah. So it's, but they do interrupt the process, and they have done that, over the years, and so it's hard to be 110% at work when you have, family and kids, because there's always interruptions, and I would say you're right. I mean, before I would say, why are you interrupting me, right? I got work to do, right? We're trying to build business,
Mm,
trying to get stuff done. But then it turns out that that's what keeps you sane, actually.
yeah.
It's there's those interruptions and those interactions, and the forced interactions that you have with your the rest of the family, right? The kids, your wife, and working through all that turns out to be important and a good balance, actually.
Yeah.
It's what I learned, right? And 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 you realize that actually that's more important than work. I mean, work's important. You have to make the money, you have to feed the kids, you have to clothe them and pay for their college education, which is a huge
Mm,
pain in the ass here in the US.
yeah.
But I think that's the part of it. I think just getting out, walking out there every day, and just taking a break from work and spending time with family. I think that's, for me, that's important. I mean, the
Yeah.
good thing for me is I get to travel a lot. Or bad, good, I don't know, but also seeing other cultures, just um, taking a break from the same place, the same locations every time, seeing new cultures, trying new food. I think that helps keep me sane, helps balance out the work.
Mm,
I mean, building a small business, as you well know, takes a lot of effort, and keeping it going and trying to reinvent yourself. Every 5 years or 10 years, that's a lot of work. And I know, kudos to you, Nick. I mean, I've known you since like the Inspiring
yeah.
days, where you came into Inspiring and you used to do consulting, and back
Yeah.
in those days. So it's been like 20 something years now. But
Yeah.
I think, just taking a break from that. I think that's been helpful, at least to me.
Yeah.
At least to me.
Yeah, it's
So
very insightful. It's so funny as you're talking. What's There are two images that kind of went through my head. One is that like when my son's like 33 now, so like when he was like probably 2 or 3, I don't know, maybe around 4. So I was traveling a lot, and this is in the 90s. Like literally, I would be in 3 different cities a week, and I would travel. So I'd be on the road the entire
mm,
time, and I would the only time it would stop for 2 weeks. It would stop, during the holidays. And also August for some, I think everyone's on vacation. And so like my travel schedule would stop. So anyway, so I'm playing with my son, and And so, where I forget what we were, playing with, cars or something like that. And then he gets up and he looks out the window, and the black limo is there. And he looks at
Mm,
that, and then he looks at me, and then he's like,
mm, yeah,
"Oh,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, those are really really hard, right? I mean, that's just
yeah,
it's
yeah,
hard when yeah. And I would say I feel fortunate because if I haven't had to work for a lot of large organizations in a sense, right? But even when you're trying to
yeah,
build your own business, it's difficult. But I've been fortunate in the sense that for a good part of when my kids were in middle school and high school, um, I had flexibility of working from home or working flexible hours, and I think
yeah,
that helps tremendously. I remember my kid, my oldest one was academically was sort of challenged initially, and we sent him for this. It was this like a SAT prep class, which a lot of the kids here in the
yeah,
Bay Area do that. So,
hmm,
so he was one of the actually he's the only one who did that anyway. So of the four, but anyway, he needed it,
yeah,
and so
hmm,
he was there, and he didn't want to be there. And so what I did was I made an arrangement with the teacher. I said, "Can I come and sit in like what was once a week, right, for 3 hours,
hmm,
and I'll just sit there, just be there, right, with him.
yeah,
And I would do work. I would be doing email and all that from there, but I was just there with him. And I think, and then he, I think he's said after the fact later on, he's like he appreciated the fact that I was there because I actually showed that I cared,
yeah,
that he was in the class, that he would pay attention. As that helped. And the story I tell
yeah,
is that some of the other kids went up to the teacher, and the teacher told me this. It's like, some of the other parents are like, how some of the kids are like, oh, my son's like, oh, he's so lucky. His dad's here, because the dad cares,
yeah,
right? And I wish my dad would do
yeah.
that,
Your
right?
your
Right?
presence, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
kudos
I
to
mean, I
you,
was
good
just there
dad.
doing
Yeah,
email, right? I mean, I was working, right? I was
yeah,
just in the room paying it, like half paying attention. But I think sometimes just physically, just
yeah,
being present, I think can make a
yeah,
difference, right? I mean, he's a good kid. I
yeah.
mean, he's grown up now. He's 25 and he's working. He's working as a network
Mm.
engineer, right? And
Ah,
actually,
awesome,
so
good boy.
yeah, yeah, I know, I know. That's what I
Well,
said. Finally, I told him to get into computer science. He didn't. He fought
yeah,
me all the way. He was like, I'm gonna do econ. I'm like, okay, great. Well,
yeah,
not that
uh,
econ's bad, right? But then
yeah,
he came out and he's like, oh, trying to find a job. It's like,
yeah,
well, it's easier with an IT job, right? So he started with IT, and I said, that's good.
yeah.
And then he says, Dad, I'm thinking of network engineering. I'm like, yes, right. So he got
All right,
CCNA. He went in, and now he's working with networking gear. He does large scale Wi-Fi deployments, and I'm very happy, right? Exactly. Like
awesome,
I'm very happy. So yeah,
awesome. Oh, great outcome. Yeah.
yeah.
Congratulations. That's
Thank
super.
you.
Yeah. Well, I think like Woody Allen said, what, like 90% of life is just showing up and being there.
Yeah.
So it's like
Actually,
you took
it's true.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
So I just
It's
have
true.
one other story, and then we'll kind of move on for this topic. But so I have to give my daughter some credit too. It's like there was a time when the first company I launched was a company called Strategic Networks. And so I'm working, in the house, and I'm kind of, pounding away. And she's probably the same age my son was at the time, like maybe 3 or 4. And so she comes into like, my office, and she's like, it probably has to be a little bit older because she was speaking. So she, she's like, Dad, come on, I want you to, I want to play. I'm like, I have to finish this. And she's like, no, like, no, you have to do this. I'm like, just give me a few minutes. And she would not take no for an answer. And finally, I said, okay, and so she grabbed my hand, and then we went inside and we played Barbie dolls, and she colored my face and put pigtails wherever she can kind of group my hair together, and I love her for that, so
Yeah, those are the
anyway,
good times. I think, when you're sort of in, you're like, oh my God, like it's and now you look back, it's like, thank God, right? I got roped into that, or thank God I did that, because
yeah,
what seemed like an irritation back then turns out to be, a blessing in disguise, right? Later on, you look back like, thank God I did that, or thank God I got roped into that, or thank God
yeah,
because that's actually what turns out to be important. And it actually wasn't an
Yeah.
email, it wasn't a document, it wasn't that business proposal or whatever it was. It was actually spending the time, right, before it's too late,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah. Because
yeah, yeah,
it's too late really quick.
yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is. Oh, believe me,
Yeah.
I feeling that now as my second one is leaving to go work in Canada, right? I'm like, wait,
Uh,
hold on, right? Like, you you
yeah.
you take it for granted until it's too late, and
Yeah.
that's just yeah. But yeah, yeah,
I know.
yeah.
Well, you're a good dad,
I don't know
and
about
a
that.
great
I'm not sure.
analyst,
I
and a
don't know
great
about that.
analyst.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see what my kids say. We'll see what my wife says. But I tried. Right. I tried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's kind of talk about kind of industry stuff, and
Sure.
so 2023, you know, um, I have some observations, but like I want to hear yours, So what do you think, kind of like the big takeaways from last year? And
Yeah.
then we'll kind of lead into like what's about to happen this year.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think 2023 in tech was there was a clear trend. There was one element that dominated through the whole year, and I think we all know what it is. It was kind of funny. We were doing these predictions videos. Jim Carroll, my media partner,
Yeah.
and I were going through the predictions videos for the year, and there was one, and we just did a quick cut. It was like AI, 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 right? Everyone, almost everyone had AI in there, and I think that dominated tech across the board, right? Whether you were networking
Hmm.
or computer storage, it was dominant. So I think that, but I think from a networking perspective, I think equally important to AI, and actually maybe more important than AI is security, importance of
Hmm.
security, importance of the next generation of security, and security baked into everything. Because I think the
Hmm.
reality is that while AI is an enhancement, is an operational improvement, I think security is one thing that if you don't take care of, it can destroy value very quickly. It it destroys companies, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I forget, it was an IBM study that said that I think 80% of the small companies that ended up getting ransomware or whatever it is, some percentage of them didn't continue. It wasn't they weren't financially viable after that, right? Because when you lose that much of your money, and unfortunately in the US, if there's fraud and a consumer, you're protected. The bank will,
Yeah.
the bank's liable to protect you. If you're a
Right.
small business, if it's gone, right? Unless you can prove that it
Yeah.
was a fault, the bank, very clear negligence, your money's
Hmm.
gone. There's no protection. And so when you
Yeah.
lose, 80% of your cash or 50% of your cash, you become non-viable. And so I think,
Yeah.
AI is important. Security is just as important. Obviously, you can use AI in security, and people do. But
Hmm.
certainly, I think the the visibility of security, the importance of security throughout all the networking. I think the convergence of security and networking, I think to me was one of the big things for 2023, and I think will continue in 2024 as we
Yeah.
see more sort of zero trust efforts or more intelligent security, um, bigger awareness around that. I think that we're going to see, right? So I think 2023 we
Yeah.
had that security element. On top of that, we had this what I call distributed cloud, right? That encompasses
Hmm.
sort of there's the cloud transformation that continues, but
Hmm.
the realization that you have multiple clouds realistically, some public, some private, multiple
Hmm.
locations, sometimes edge locations, sometimes your private data centers. I think the realization of a distributed cloud, distributed workloads, distributed computing as a reality. And I think along with that, the need for orchestration, visibility, security. I think that
Hmm.
was a theme for me in terms of 2023 as well. That became more prominent with the rise of the multiple vendors in the space, and at ONUG, it's very clear you see a lot of those vendors, showing up at ONUG. So I think
Yeah.
that's one of the other elements that was I think that's equally important. Um, I think the other element around security and networking is the convergence of some of the feature sets that I'm seeing, right? So you're seeing,
Hmm.
I mean, we use the term SASE and SSE and
Hmm.
ZTNA and the like, and SD-WAN still exists, right? So, but
Yeah.
fundamentally, in 2023, you saw more convergence around the stacks. You saw a
Yeah.
desire to collapse some of those functions together so that they were more manageable. so that they were more synergistic because you could do both at the same time. Saw a good bunch of that in the 2023 timeframe as well. I think that was important.
Yeah.
I think the third sort of theme around sort of the enterprise side of things is a realization that whether it's return to office or work from home or wherever it is this connectivity, pervasiveness and importance of connectivity, whether you're at home,
Mm,
you're on mobile, or your remote branch office or whatever it is. I think that pervasiveness of connectivity, reliable connectivity, convenient connectivity, I think that's important as well. Obviously,
mm,
along with security, with the convergence team. So I think that distributed cloud, the convergence, security, networking, that importance of pervasiveness of connectivity. I think
mm.
some of the things that I saw in 2023, sort of, as we recovered from a pandemic, saw those trends sort of moving right along with AI. They were put to the side because everyone talks about it. So, so I think
Yeah.
that's I think in my mind what struck me about last year.
Yeah, those are good. Those are actually I overlap a lot on that. It's like
Mm,
the multi-cloud piece, the network, and the certain security convergence. I see it in a couple different ways. One, I think you're right, kind of feature set, integration or convergence, but
mm-hmm.
also in the operations, NOx and SOX and the integration there.
Yes,
And
yes.
that's a huge transformation that's happening, pretty systemically, across the community.
Mm-hmm.
Distributed cloud for sure, multi-cloud, as well.
Yep.
The I think the other major trend that we saw like during the year was contraction,
Mm,
and rationalization. So
mm, mm,
the
mm,
amount of
mm,
dollars going into cloud providers, slowed by half in terms of their
mm-hmm.
growth rate. Right,
Mm-hmm.
they were
Mm,
projected to grow by 30%. I think it was around 15. So that was a big deal for them to
mm-hmm.
kind of see that correction in the marketplace. And then also it was just the take that spend that they already had and now start to rationalize it. How do we extract the value from all that? So that was another prevalent, theme, that we were kind of talking about, over at ONU.
Yep. No, I agree. I think that's a good point. The whole, on the cloud side, when we talk to the cloud customers that we have or the enterprises, that FinOps, right? The new thing about
Mm,
FinOps, right? Not just DevOps, NetOps, SecOps, but FinOps and the financial element of it. And when Werner, the CTO over at AWS in the reInvent talk, when he talks about,
yeah,
cost savings, right? And when he starts talking about cost savings, you know that clearly that's a trend.
mm,
That's,
yeah.
it's now AWS is like, we will save you more money than the other clouds, right? I'm like, oh yeah, sure, right, yes.
Yeah,
That's
I thought we, I thought we heard that, like about 5 years ago. you
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. And but cloud cost is staggering. I mean, but I mean, yeah, I
yeah,
mean, the reality is that there is waste, right? I mean, and it helps. I mean, you don't need to be wasting your money. I know a lot of organizations, they spin up, people spin up instances just because they can, and they're not
yeah,
watching, right? Because and it's a waste. It's a waste from money. It's a waste,
yeah,
sustainability and energy costs as well as a waste, right? Why use it if you don't need it, right? Now I
yeah.
say that meanwhile I'm on mid journey creating useless images just for fun because I can, right? And meanwhile,
But that's
it's
different. That's entertainment.
that's true. That is probably
Actually, I
true. Yeah.
stopped using Midjourney. I was using it a lot, and I was really having fun with it. But then I got frustrated. It was like I couldn't tell it describe enough to it
Mm,
to kind of give me something that was satisfying me, and
mm,
so
mm, mm,
and I think I was giving it too much,
mm, mm,
and
mm.
so it would give me these images that were kind of like, far out, kind of, it was like someone was tripping, they dropped
Yeah. Yeah.
acid
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
started drawing, you know, I'm like, yeah, I don't know, that's
Yeah.
not what I was
Yeah. No.
thinking,
It, it
but
it
it's
it
pretty
comes
cool.
up with very weird things. It is pretty cool. I know it is pretty cool. It
Yeah,
comes up with very weird things.
yeah,
Sometimes you're like, oh wow, that's really, really wonderful. I mean, I did this experiment. We didn't end up using it because it's a living artist. So we did something in the style of Banksy. my God, it
Uh-huh.
was outstanding. It was outstanding
Oh,
because it actually showed like real world like photographs of like say a wall or a side of a building. So it was clearly
yeah.
like photographic quality of like a building. And then there would be his art style, right? Black and reds and there. It was really
Yeah.
good. It was very scary. It was amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
we never used it
Mm,
obviously because Banksy's still alive, but
yeah.
remarkable. That technology is
Yeah.
remarkable. Very interesting. Yes.
Yeah, actually, as you kind of said that, it reminded me. So we've been working with Worldwide Technology, and so we've been expanding that partnership. And so I wanted to like kind of create an image. Okay, well, what could be the outcome, of this relationship, over,
Mm-hmm.
a couple of years. And so I actually had Midjourney kind of draw something up, and that was impressive. And so I shared that. I,
Mm.
put that into a presentation, and gave Midjourney credit, for it, but yeah, it kind of like it just expanded your thinking, around, oh, what's possible, the art of
Yeah.
possibility,
Yeah. The art of the
So
possible. I
anyway,
think that's what is there. Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
no, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, no. I was gonna say, yeah. I think what I find Gen AI useful in is providing ideas, providing things that you may not have thought of. Right. It's a good collaborator from that standpoint. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's think about kind of like, not so much predictions, even though, but like, industry analysts like love to predict, and,
Yeah.
I put myself in that category, Um, but maybe more, and well, predictions are okay, but what do you think like is going to be the trajectory for 2024? Kind of where are we going, and what do you think, will be kind of the either big stories or will be kind of the big trends this year?
Yep. So yeah, yeah. If you notice, I haven't made predictions. So we haven't written any. I haven't written anything. No, in our
Yeah.
prediction 2024 series, I actually don't show up deliberately, because
Uh,
I know one thing for sure. My predictions are probably going to be wrong. But from an industry analysis standpoint, in terms of
yeah.
plotting that trend trajectory,
Yeah.
that's a safer place to be. So I think from our standpoint, what I find interesting is that you don't always have to predict new things. I think the reality is that the distributed cloud will continue. I mean, we know that it's going to continue this year.
Yeah.
We're going to see it everywhere. I think the other reality is that convergence of networking and security is not going to go away. So you're going to see more of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I hope to see simplification of that. I have a presentation I make about, we've complexified, right? Complexified to simplify, which is we've complexified this whole security thing with SASE and all that. We've thrown everything in kitchen sink into one big
Yeah.
umbrella. And then the enterprise are looking at it like, oh my God, I can't deal with this. But the
Mm,
reality is, we shouldn't be thinking about it as a collection of acronyms. We should be looking at it in terms of, as a business, this is what I need to protect my data. These are the sort of the basic functions. And then start
yeah.
from sort of the bottoms up, sort of first principles approach and then rebuild it again. Like some of the vendors I think are starting to think about that and doing that. So I'm hoping that
Mm,
we'll see the convergence, but from an what does the end user need in a converged solution standpoint, as opposed to let's see how many acronyms we can throw at this in this bucket and check all the boxes. I think
yeah.
that's the wrong approach. So I'm hoping 2024 will see that kind of simplification, streamlining around that convergence. Um, I think the other element around 24 is going to be a lot more operational assistance optimization, not just the Gen AI type stuff, but the AI ML
Mhm.
stuff that we've seen for many, many years. I think we'll see the fruition of that effort coming. So we'll see more automated networks, more I wouldn't say autonomous yet, but certainly more automation in networks and assisted automation in networks. I expect to see some things around that for optimization,
Mm,
for some level of auto healing, so we get more reliability, more scalability out of that. Is my hope
yeah.
on that sense, right? And I think we'll see a little dip on AI, where we start realizing what Gen AI specifically is good for and what it's not good for. I think we'll learn a little bit of that. So hopefully some
Mm,
kind of minor correction. It's not a bad thing, really. It's a good thing.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
that's my hope actually that will happen. I think that's the main aspect, and I see on the security side more attacks, no change. It's always up into the. I mean, that's just the reality of it. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm hoping as well on the IT side, on the infrastructure side, that we start building out better frameworks, stronger frameworks in terms of a sort of that trust attestation, fidelity
Mm.
frameworks, and obviously starts with devices and platforms. But I see technology as a key element of rebuilding or building trust in societies. How do you know that that video was real? Well, maybe that video
Yeah.
is timestamped. Maybe it's got a stream that attests to the fact that it came from this camera in this location at this point in time, and I can prove it to you, right, with
Yeah.
reasonable certainty. I can prove that this content was me. I signed it. It's actually me, certified. It was Roy. It was Nick who actually said
Hmm.
that, not someone else. We have a lot of those technologies, signing, digital,
Hmm.
PKI infrastructure and all that. I don't think we've applied them sufficiently with government help or with large organizational help to recreate a trustworthy network or trustworthy computing. I think that, to me, in 24, I think is going to be important. Going forward, it's going to be even more important in terms of the platform, the stream, the location. So if I watch that video, I know that video came from a camera in this location and it was owned by this person because I'm signing. And I think technology can be used to recreate trust. And I'm hoping in
Yeah.
24 that we learn that, especially with
Yeah.
elections coming up. And in fact, I think I heard about half the world is going to be going to some elections somewhere. I mean, obviously in
Oh.
Russia, you know
Mm.
what the outcome is going to be, so there's no
Yeah.
question about that. But in the
Yeah.
U.S., who knows,
There's
right?
no cliffhanger there.
No, there isn't. No, there isn't. No, there
Yeah.
isn't. I don't think any of the bookies are taking bets on that one. I think that one is. But elsewhere in the world, I think half the world is going to go to elections this year. So
Yeah.
so anyway, so we'll see. But I think trust is important to rebuild across the infrastructure, right? So
Yeah.
that's my
It's
take.
interesting.
Yeah.
Like our views are so similar. We might prioritize different things, but I think like the list that we have. So I have both on the consumer side, kind of I think trends that are happening this year, and then also on the supplier side. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think on the consumer side, and you've actually alluded to like these words. But one is simplification, and so every consumer now is dealing with complexity inflation that's occurred over the last couple of years. And so
Mm-hmm.
there is now kind of major simplification efforts, that are underway. And simplification manifests itself with design patterns, templates, vendor reduction or rationalization, device rationalization, organizational structure, transformations of groups, like the operations piece that we talked about. So I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a systemic view of, okay, this is kind of like the year to really simplify. And it's simplify not just to as another way to kind of reduce spend or um, to make life easier. It's just like life is unbearable. It's like there's just way too much complexity. And the goal, though, is to build trusted infrastructure, so that
Mm-hmm.
you simplify it with the mind of trust. And trust is really key, because you need the developers to trust this infrastructure, and the infrastructure
Mm-hmm.
people who are building it to be able to trust it, as well. So we think that so on the consumer side, they've gone from overconsumption in 20 and 21, parts of 2022. Then
Mm-hmm.
mid 2022 into like 2023 was rationalization,
Yeah.
of that overspend. And now and that during that happened, complexity inflation significantly increased. And now it's really all about, okay, how do we simplify this
Mm-hmm.
and build a trusted infrastructure? And then there are underpinning technologies that are enabling that, and you've mentioned a few of them, and I want to kind of get back to, you wrote an article around NAS, and I want to get to that. I thought that was brilliant, frankly, the way you wrote that.
Well, thank you.
But I think that's one simplification technology. I think, maybe a little bit where we differ is on kind of AI in our industry, like on AI networking, is that we're actually launching, it's called the AI Networking Summit. If
Mm.
it hasn't launched yet, it will be launching, shortly. But in
Mm-hmm.
there, our first thinking was, okay, well, networking, there are certain requirements around AI workloads that um, put pressure on networking. So there are different requirements that
Mm-hmm.
so networking needs to change. Then it was really then that started to move towards yeah, that's true. And also what's driving that is that many large organizations, large corporations aren't going to use public AI services because of
Mm-hmm.
just the cost, the compliance, the risk, there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really going to be, it's going to be private. So they need to build, what's the strategies around building private AI? Not
Mm-hmm.
just for IT, of course, but like to run their business, and to get to absorb and ingest all these emitters that they're getting from all over, the landscape. So there's this kind of move towards private AI that will, I think, manifest itself in 2024, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's AI as it moves into the protocol layer around networking and also on security, especially on the back end of security, in the SIM and the SOAR and the data lake space, and trying to take all that data or make sense out of that and do instant response, quicker. And so I think so there is AI moving into the infrastructure stack,
Mm-hmm.
as well. And then the other real area is if you how that might manifest itself over time is that okay, you can now envision like an AI orchestrator, that works on behalf of an application, and it spins up infrastructure for that application, and it's monitoring security profiles and networking routes. It impacts the cost of a hop, to include security, include real
Mm-hmm.
dollar cost, like latency and so forth. So I think so I guess lack of a better way, we're kind of looking at this from multiple different points of view, and I'm coming as the more and more I kind of spend time on this, the more I think that the impact could be bigger than the introduction of TCP/IP and Ethernet. That this is not a derivative. This is it is a new vector, and a new vector that's going to create value, which we don't really know, yet. So that, like, as I sit here today, that's my thinking around that. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's going to start to come into shape in 2024. So that I agree with your assessment around network and security convergence wholeheartedly. That's going to continue
Mm-hmm.
on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's derivative, right? So that will continue. Distributed cloud,
Right.
that will continue, as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Yeah. No, I agree. I think the AI ML elements will continue. I think, from my perspective, some of the ML and AI efforts that have been ongoing in networking for some time now, not necessarily the Gen AI stuff, but the sort of
yeah,
traditional AI techniques and CNN, RNNs, all the other approaches to that. I think will continue to yield value. And I think you're right. The automation, the scalability, that I think we'll see ongoing. I think the Gen AI stuff is going to be interesting. I'm going to be watching that. I think right now, from a summarization standpoint, from going through data and trying to make it easy to explain to humans so that you can actually help, it parses the data, pre-process the data, and provides you with, hey, look here, or here are the 5 things that you should be looking at. I think definitely very helpful. I mean, I've used it myself to analyze CSV files, right? I'll just put it in there and say, hey, draw me a graph or show me this and that. And it definitely helps save a lot of time for sure. So
yeah,
definitely looking forward to some of those elements. I think, I think 24 is going to be interesting as we learn what Gen AI can and cannot do. And there'll be new breakthroughs. I mean, we'll find new stuff in there for sure. With that much money and people and
yeah,
brains behind it, that's
yeah.
I think it's going to be really interesting. I mean, every week there's something new to look at, right? So, but
Yeah.
yeah, looking
Yeah,
forward
I'm
to
kind of hoping
to
that also
24.
2024 brings back the IPO market. So
Yeah, yeah.
I was talking to Steve Milani, on the podcast, and Steve
Mm-hmm.
actually had um, a good perspective, and some one that you and I can both relate to is that as we went through those downturns,
Mm-hmm.
the strong survived and the weak didn't. So it's kind of a weeding out process,
Yeah.
and so we're in that process right now with the IPO window
Mm-hmm.
closed. And so runways, aren't, infinitely long. And so
Mm-hmm.
those companies that aren't profitable have to raise money. And if they can't raise it, obviously, what happens, um, so it'd be nice to see the IPO window open up, because I think once it does, we're going to have a bunch of really strong companies, coming out that
Yep.
have kind of
Yep.
weathered this walk through the desert, you know,
Mm.
over the last like
Yeah.
3 years, 3 or 4 years. You know.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I think that that's true, and I know some of those companies, and I'm hoping that they will get, to they'll get their rewards, so to speak, right, for building a real business over the last few
Yeah.
years. And there's a couple of those that I'm pretty impressed with. So yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. So I have like one other topic, your
Sure.
sassy, your NAS,
Mm.
blog. So I was really impressed with that. That actually changed my mind on how I viewed the
Oh,
NAS marketplace. So I wanted to thank you for that. And I
well,
thought,
thank you.
for those who haven't read it, actually, Andrea, if you can kind of take a look, Andrea's like behind backstage here, but if you can try to
Mhm.
find or do a search for Roy's NAS blog and pull it up, that would be great if you can.
Yeah.
So all right, so
Many
Roy,
Faces of NAS is what it's called. Yeah. I think it's called, yeah,
yeah,
Many Faces of NAS and Andrea is what it's called. But yeah, but appreciate you reading it, and thank you. I
you're
mean,
welcome.
the
But let's talk
impetus
about
for
it.
it, yeah. So I wrote it originally because I was talking to our friends over at the MEF, right? And they
Hmm.
had a NAS event, and I think they were in the process of trying to define NAS, and
Yeah,
I was explaining that was a difficult thing because NAS had been defined and redefined
yeah.
many times, hence the many faces of
Mm.
literally the many faces of NAS.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. So everyone,
uh,
this is the article. So like, read it. It's like it's really really good.
well, thank
So,
you.
but we're going to talk about it now, and it's on the AvidThink website. Awesome.
Yep,
Thanks, Andrew.
thank you. Yep.
Okay.
And so yeah, so what struck me was, I was talking to many networking companies, the carriers, enterprises across the, and everyone uses the word NAS because they're trying to redefine it and make it their own. And
Yeah.
I think, what struck me was like, why are we trying to do that? Because the reality is that we have SaaS. We'll live with SaaS, software as a service. We're not trying
Yeah.
to redefine SaaS really, right? And we're
Hmm.
comfortable with what does SaaS mean? Well, SaaS is Salesforce, SaaS is Figma, SaaS is Canva, SaaS is, these are all just,
Zoom.
SaaS is a business model in a sense, right? They have attributes, right? It's
Hmm.
you pay as you go, on demand, right? All these attributes around the business model and the framework, but you have flavors of it underneath that, right? You have CRMs, you have your productivity, you have your diagramming, and you have your ERPs, you have, and so my thought was, NAS, network as a service, is similar in a sense, right? It is similar because there are attributes of the framework which I discussed in the article. What's the same? There are a few things that are a little different because the advantage of SaaS is they depend on networks in existence and connectivity being there, and so they have an advantage. When you are the network, it's not the same. You can't have NAS on demand if there wasn't a cable or wireless connection to you in the first place, right?
Hmm.
You can't magic connectivity out of nowhere. Someone's going to run fiber to your location before you can do that. But once you have the basic physical connectivity, the services that you run on top of that, certainly that can be on demand, that can be pay as you go, that can, especially with fiber with enough capacity, you can do a lot of flexible things with it. Likewise with wireless. And so that's what's the impetus for the article, to try to it was more of a message to the people I was talking to and the companies I was working with in organizations to say,
Yeah.
maybe it's not that great an idea to try to define NAS. You're getting into a fight. There's just no point. But let's agree on what NAS is, and then let's agree on why enterprises want NAS. Right? Again, it's back to the complexity thing that we talked about and simplification, right? They want
Yeah.
simplification, they want agility, and they demand that from the network providers. And we need to
Yeah.
give them that from the
Yeah.
campus to the WAN to the cloud. Right? I think that's the reality. Now, once you agree with that, then it becomes sub-classification within NAS of what category you belong to, and you can reclassify it, right? But if we look at it that way, I think it's a better place to start, and it allows us to focus on what the enterprise actually need, as opposed to arguing about the nomenclature, which actually doesn't help anyone, right? So
Yeah.
that was the impetus behind the article, and yeah,
Yeah. Well, I loved
appreciate you
it
reading
because
it.
like I thought. Oh, I'm sorry. I stepped on you.
No,
Say that
no, no.
again.
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, no. I was done. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I loved it because I think the analogy to SaaS was made in it, and it's actually a pretty powerful one. The way that because like you can slice and dice this market in lots of different ways, and I think that's the point, right? So, Meraki kind of showed, maybe Meraki might have been like the first kind of NAS offering in the marketplace, and a lot of folks are now trying to repeat that, that
Mm-hmm.
model, whether that's for local area networking, whether it's like for kind of next
Yeah,
generation Wi-Fi, whether that is for campus data center, so you can
that's right.
remote access, you can slice and dice that way, or you can slice and dice on features and functions, and services, associated with NAS. I thought there is one other key point about it. I think you alluded to it, and that is like the underpinnings of NAS is this programmable infrastructure,
Mm-hmm. That's right.
programmable networking infrastructure, and it's the exposing of networking features through APIs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what's um, what's really powerful about that concept is that you can have, for example, like Citibank consuming a Verizon NAS service, and you can have Bank of America consuming a Verizon NAS service, and they can be completely different implementations of that same service that they're offering.
Mm-hmm.
So it's no longer like an MPLS, network where it's one
That's right.
size fits all.
That's right.
It really
That's
is
right.
customized. Is the
Yeah.
goal really? It's like we're not there yet, but that is the goal where you can really kind of get that service and customize it, to your particular requirements and needs, and that's
Yeah, once you
powerful.
have the fiber, no, I think that once you have that fiber fits, once you have the physical connectivity figured out, right? Above that, we're back to what we call the software-defined networks, right? Back from a decade
Mm.
ago, right?
Yeah,
We've always been trying to approach it as asymptotically, right? We're trying to get to the asymptote of SDN, true SDN, right? Whatever that
yeah,
means to be, whatever nirvana is. But the programmable element of it, the on-demand nature of it, I think that
yeah,
is an important part, right? Just as with SaaS or IaaS or whatever it is, that you can sort of get the flavor that you want in a programmatic fashion, that you do
mhm,
sort of infrastructure as code. We're back to this network as code as well, right? I mean, that's where you get the scalability and the flexibility and agility. Once you have a physical infrastructure, whatever is above it, I think we'll
yeah.
learn about how to consume it, how to program it, how to sell it, monetize it, manage it. Right? I think
All right.
that should be what we should be focusing on, right? Not trying to name it
Yeah.
or rename it or arguing about it. I think fundamentally, let's ask enterprises what they want. Let's also figure out what enterprises could want. It's part of
Mhm.
creativity and imagining new things and invention. And let's work our way there, right? So that's what I'm hoping to see on the networking side over the next few years, right? Not 2024
Yeah.
per se only, but over the next few years, just to see that element. Just as cloud computing came out of that whole movement, right? We should have
Yeah.
it's not cloud networking per se, but it's that term means something else right now, but it's the equivalent from a concept
Yeah.
perspective of that, right? For networking. That's my hope.
Yeah, we did that with servers. The cloud providers did a really great job to be, great
Mm-hmm.
host, for servers.
Yep.
It's like, and we haven't done that with networking. And so
No,
it's like,
we haven't.
networking. It's so odd because like actually in the mid '90s, late '90s, all of a sudden networking was really kind of like advanced, right? Because we really
Mm-hmm.
didn't have much networking other than SNA and DECnet and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like once TCP/IP came on the scene, it's like wow, everyone freaking got it, and email exploded, and then web traffic kind of
Right.
exploded, and productivity went crazy, across the economy. Um, you know, that, that's such an important kind of component, of this marketplace, and to kind of see where we're going to go, from here on this NAS journey. I think is something that will manifest itself in 2024. I'm hoping anyway,
I
that it
think it will
will.
emerge.
So
I think it will emerge in 2024. I think one of the things that I do is I think about, if you look at the cloud computing, you look at storage, you look at computing, you look at the evolution of that. Networking is usually behind because there's a physical element to it, unfortunately, right? You actually have to
yeah,
connect it. But what's the equivalent, of what happened to computing with IaaS, with PaaS, right? You can imagine for
yeah,
network, and what
yeah,
does serverless mean for network? What does networkless mean, right? Um,
right,
right. What does
yeah,
that mean, right? I mean, is there a meaning for that? Can I send a packet on demand without a network present, or can I use a network just to send those packets and then be done with it as a service. And
Right.
do I just pay for that unit, right? What does that mean in networking? Maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't, but I think we should be
Yeah.
thinking about it, right? I think we should be
Yeah.
thinking about it. Yeah,
I totally agree. It's like,
yeah,
and I was just kind of like finishing that thought, it's like we were kind of advanced like back in the 90s, and then computing kind of like
yes,
just took
yeah,
over.
yep,
And then the cloud
yeah,
providers really kind of like were able to kind of democratize that. Unfortunately,
mm-hmm.
they actually democratized it and they centralized it,
Right,
and so
right,
the
right,
internet
right,
got
right.
de-democratized, during that process.
Yes, yes,
So it would be really great to see kind of, the networking marketplace. And we already had that in storage, where storage is kind of a cloud
mm-hmm.
service. We don't
Mm-hmm.
have it in networking yet. And I think I
That's
have
right.
great hopes that NASA is really going to do that. And that will open up a kind of a really big market for the networking community. So,
Yep, that's the hope. That's the hope. That's what I'm hoping.
yeah,
And we'll see emergence in 24. Yeah.
yeah, I think so. So, Roy, unless you have anything for me, I think, that's kind of a nice natural end.
Yeah, no, I think, I think that was a good conversation. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I'm actually glad that we actually had time to sit down and actually talk. Normally we're running around, and, hey Nick, hey, and then
Yeah.
that's it, right? That's, yeah. So I really appreciate the opportunity to actually sit down and
Awesome.
speak
Great,
to
Roy. I
you.
really
Yeah,
enjoyed it too. Thanks so much. And,
likewise. No,
I
you're
hope to
very
see you
welcome.
at one of the ONUGs this year.
Yeah, I think Jim and I spoke. We booked. We're going to be in Dallas for sure, right?
Oh,
So we'll
awesome.
see you. Yeah, yeah. So we'll
Okay.
be supporting ONUG in Dallas in April. Yeah. So okay,
Awesome.
whatever. We booked the tickets already. So
It's, yeah,
we're
man.
coming.
Yeah, food's going to be
Yeah.
great. Wolfgang Puck does a great job.
We're looking forward to it. No, we're looking forward to it. Yeah. No, we're
Uh,
glad. Yeah, it's a great partnership. We're really glad. We appreciate you having us there, and we have a lot of joint clients there. So looking forward
yeah.
to it. Yeah.
Awesome. Excellent.
Excellent.
Great. Thanks, Roy.
All right. Thank you, Nick.